think we need is a software-defined but hardware-enabled defense prime, rather than just like a software company like Palantir. My surprise, the team was like, well, who better to do it? Yeah, you're trying to figure out, is this the type of person that's going to be able to manifest this reality?
What does Anduril need to do, like from where it is now to like getting to, the scale that you want to be to? It seems like from, at least the outside, you have de-risked and proven so much, but I'm sure there's still like a lot in front of you to like get up to the size and scale that like, you could be operating at. So like, what's now?
Yeah, it's all about production. That's like the end of the day, is that we've gone from building dozens of things to hundreds of things to thousands of things. And now we need to make tens of thousands of things. And the only way that you can do that is by developing a muscle around manufacturing that most venture-backed startups don't have. That's not how we think about building things.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the way that like a contract manufacturer, let's say like a Flextronics works, where, a company comes to them and says, we have a design, we have some sense of design for manufacturing, how this is going to be built. And then Flextronics figures out how to do that at massive scale, how to reduce cost. They work directly with the engineers at the company to design for manufacturing. That's kind of what we need to do at this point. Yeah. We need to get to the point where we are building at scale. And that means that we're making design decisions when we build things that are enabling scaling up to tens of thousands of units.
Yeah.
So last year we announced that we're building out a facility in Ohio that we're calling Arsenal One, which is over the next few years will be a 5 million square foot manufacturing campus. The first about 800,000 square feet will come online in the first quarter of 2026. And we're building out that team and starting to kind of take very seriously the challenges that are going to be a big part of scaling from where we are now to that point.
It seems like Tesla and SpaceX are like a couple of the only companies that have like really done this at scale.
Yeah.
I mean, we should talk about SpaceX a little bit because obviously you guys are close, but can you like explain why it is so hard? Like what are the capabilities that are like extremely hard to acquire to like produce cars at scale or military equipment at scale, rockets at scale? Like, can you like, articulate why it's so hard to do 20,000 instead of 200?
There are people that could do it better than I can, but I'll do my best.
Yeah.
I mean, the Tesla example is a good one. Like the skill set that was required to build the first Roadster, like you can spend basically an infinite amount of money. You can be highly exquisite in your approach to every problem that you're trying to solve. Very different than we're going to make 1 million cars. And like, if we're going to make 1 million cars, what is the most efficient way to weld door panels? What's the most efficient way to acquire the materials that we need to manufacture batteries?
Yeah, actually, it's like when you say like 1 million cars, you're like, okay, like how many is that a day? And then you're like, geez.
It's crazy. Like the scale is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a different mentality that you need internally to do that. SpaceX is a little different because it's still highly exquisite aerospace kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But even in that case, you see that, Elon and team they've verticalized the supply chain.
Yeah.
So they're like making things in house.
There's still a lot of volume of really complicated stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they figured out like, we can't actually go to suppliers for a lot of these parts because the cost to the business, the risk to the business of that part failing is catastrophic. And so they end up having to verticalize a lot of this. In the Anduril case, it's like, if we're building missiles, like right now, like a Patriot missile is $2.25 million. It's a lot of money for one missile.
Mm-hmm.
What if you were to build a Patriot equivalent or better missile for 1/10 the cost? A lot of the changes that you would make are literally manufacturing decisions. It's like, how are you molding the exterior of it? How are you making solid rocket motors? What is what materials are being used in the seekers? Do we have the ability to acquire enough of those materials that we can manufacture at scale at lower cost? And so there's obviously engineering design decisions, but a lot of that is also, can you manufacture at a price that is attractive?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you see like a lot, just hearing you talk about it, it's like you see a lot of, which is amazing, new companies that are like working on like a particular weapon or product or something in like the defense space. And then like, I wonder like how much of the battle is that versus government relationships, production capabilities, like capital access, like, relative to like in a software company where like building a great software product is like, let's say it's like 70% of the battle. Like, I wonder what the equivalent is.
Yeah. I always tell defense tech companies this. It's like, this is not the field of dreams. If you build it, they do not come. That's not how it works. Like if you build a perpetual motion machine and the point of the perpetual motion machine is like powering forward operating bases, you go to the Department of War and you say, I have built you a perpetual motion machine and I will sell it to you for $1 million. They would, okay, we're going to bid this out to market and we're going to have Lockheed Martin a $100 billion contract to rebuild from white paper your perpetual motion machine. That's how it works.
Wow.
The challenge is really, do you understand well enough how the government works that you can navigate a strategy so that they're going to buy from a non-traditional player? And that's like, you flip it. It's like not 70% product. It's like 30% product. The product matters. You have to build something that works and that serves the warfighter's needs and is better than the alternative, all of that. You also have to know what you're doing on the business side of the equation.
One last question, because we were just talking about SpaceX, there was Space Force announced, and years ago people kind of made fun. It seems to me like space warfare is actually gonna be super important. Is there a sense that you have that as time goes on, more and more of the way war is going to happen between countries will happen maybe without people on land? Will a lot of it be in space? What's the future of the way that powers are going to struggle?
Yeah, I mean, space is going to be really important, without a doubt. But all of it, every domain is going to have its own version of low-cost autonomy. The era of putting 5,000 people on a $15 billion aircraft carrier and using that for force projection is over. You can fire a single-digit millions hypersonic carrier killer missile and take that asset out. It's that's not the way that you're going to do that.
Yeah.
And so
are aircraft carriers still important?
I mean, not in great power conflicts. Maybe they're important from a logistics perspective, but because of this cost calculus, it's
crazy because not that long ago they were these just machines of dominance, right?
Well, I think in the types of conflicts we were engaging in the era of counterterrorism or something, very different. The non-state actors, terrorist organizations, they're not going to be taking out aircraft carriers by and large. Yeah. That is, it's just a different kind of risk calculus.
So what'll it be now? Will we have a lot less? Human to human combat's going to go down, I assume.
Well, human to human combat has been going down for a while. I mean, you look at the exception to that, of course, is in a conflict between Ukraine and Russia, you still have a lot of casualties, a lot of casualties. I don't think most people fully recognize just how many casualties there have been in that conflict. But the way that the United States Armed Forces has been engaging internationally is very heavily driven by special forces, which I think is going to be the case for a long time. You're going to have highly trained, highly skilled operators that do super risky missions and things like that. But most of the other engagement is very likely going to be autonomy. Yeah. It's low-cost undersea, low-cost surface vessels, low-cost ground vehicles, low-cost aerial vehicles, and doing that in a way that takes the human out of the dullest, dirtiest, most dangerous jobs, and empowers our ability to execute a strategy in a way that reduces potential for casualties and loss of human life.
So I just was thinking as we're talking, I'm talking to an Anduril founder, but we're also we're here at Founders Fund, you're an investor too. And so you really are doing both things at once, but really doing both things at once. And, many people at Founders Fund do it that way. What's the ethos for you, maybe for Founders Fund in general, but I guess just for you, what is this sort of founder investor, do you think about it? Does it matter? Are you just doing what feels, most important at any given time? What is the mindset behind the way that you work like this?
Yeah, it really is the latter, just kind of doing whatever feels the most important at that moment. I didn't start Anduril because I was man, I really want to be a slashy, an actor model from Zoolander. I really want to do investor operator. Yeah. That was not my thought process. I didn't even think that was an option. I had been looking for, we did, we're large investors in Palantir and SpaceX. The question is there another one that we should be looking for? I had been kind of poking around, didn't find anything, and went back to the team and I said, what I really think we need is a software-defined but hardware-enabled defense prime rather than just a software company like Palantir. And I was it's going to be really hard. SpaceX and Palantir are both founded by billionaires. I'm not really sure how this company is going to exist, but if it does exist, we will know about it because it's going to have to be pretty high profile. And to my surprise, the team was well, who better to do it? You should just go and build the team to do that. Yeah. So it was kind of accidental. But then from a day-to-day perspective, my chief of staff is awesome. She's been with me for the last 2 years here. We just kind of divide and conquer, and she sets the priorities for, here are the Anduril things that really have to happen today. Here are the Founders Fund things that really have to happen today. And we context switch a lot.
One of the things that I would find probably interesting in your shoes is the relationships with Palantir, SpaceX, Anduril, like they're so deep that, you're also like out, you might be meeting a seed or series A or B company or whatever. And you've also got these relationships where you can and do just continue investing in these companies that you are helping build, very well, you have crazy close relationships. So like, how do you internally think about comparing deploying more capital in these things where you're spending tons of time, everything versus like you meet a new company the regular VC way?
I've still loved the kind of curiosity that venture capital brings to the table. Like I love learning about new things. There's energy that I get from the VC side of things that is super fun. One of the things that I noticed, I've been in venture now for just about 12 years. One of the first things I noticed when I joined Founders Fund is that VCs make for incredible dinner table conversations because we know like 6 inches of depth across the widest possible breadth of sectors.
Totally.
But I also found that to be like sort of boring over time. And Anduril has been an amazing antidote to that.
Yeah.
So it's like I can go a mile deep and then I can come out and and do the 6 inches of depth thing again.
There's actually a funny thing with these podcasts where I will, an accomplished CEO has just succeeded wildly. That has a smaller TAM audience than a VC who can just talk about a bunch of things, which I sort of get like as a listener or just as like a dinner guest. I understand that. But I think the really interesting meat usually is deep somewhere.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is the most remarkable thing about a person like Elon is that
he's deep in so many places.
He's deep in so many places. Yeah. And the closer that I'm not Elon and I'll never be Elon, but the closer I've gotten to that as I've gotten deep in like multiple things, I've really respected and appreciated even more how insanely hard this is. Like I was with him a few months back as we were transitioning between 2 meetings that we were going to. He was like on a conference call with SpaceX talking about like the literal metallurgical materials that were going to be used for this specific part in the rocket. Crazy. And I was like, how is it possible that you're that involved at that level?
And it's not like the learnings port from like, it's not like Tesla needs those materials. So it's like he learned it for one purpose.
For one purpose. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm even remotely close to that, but there's something intellectually much more meaty for me on the operations side for sure.
Taking aside the incubations, although that's obviously part of it, or there's building companies, being a founder, the investing itself has just been like extremely good. And I'd be curious if you could try to pick apart or point to some of the things that have mattered for that. Maybe I'll start by prompting like what I have sort of observed that seems particularly good. One is like the ability to concentrate over and over again in aggressive ways within a fund, across a fund. That seems very important. There's obviously calling trends early and like not hopping into things that are already hot, but like doing things before they're hot. There seems to be something about like the way the partnership operates and like the type of dynamics that you have with one another and how ideas get debated. But I'm curious, like you're obviously living it. Like what would you point to as the things that have made Founders Fund as high performance as it has been?
If you divided this into access, evaluation, of companies and like follow on, there's probably an answer in each of those categories. On the access front, it's like I've been here 12 years. The fund has been around for 20 years. Most of the access edge that we have happened before my time. It's like the PayPal mafia coming together, Peter's brand. There's like a long history of people leaving storied VC funds to start their own firms and stuff like that. Like I have literally zero interest in doing that. I am just riding the wave of Peter Thiel's genius. And that's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's a great strategy.
That's great.
So that's like that edge. The middle one on evaluation, I think that like, this is also sort of a Peter culture thing, which is open debate. There are no sacred cows. Hierarchy doesn't exist. It's like, whether it's me, Peter, Napoleon, which are like the GP, or the newest person into the fund, we want everyone to be fighting and advocating for what they believe we should be investing in. And because of that, you get this really vibrant culture of debate. It's not like a single hegemonic figure coming in and, beating down the junior people and telling them how to do things.
A friend of mine who used to work here was saying that like somebody asked him if like the fact that people like debate hard was like one of the tough things in partner meeting, and he's like, no, that was like amazing. It was like there was enough trust and respect between people to like fight it out for real.
Totally.
Which I think doesn't exist at like a lot of places.
One of the most shocking things to me when I first joined. I had worked with Peter for a while when I was at Palantir. I was at Palantir for 6 years before I came here. But I kind of had this expectation that Peter would be this sort of immovable intellectual force.
Yeah.
And actually,
you can convince him of stuff.
You can convince him of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You have to construct a good argument. And that's how you're going to gain respect with him, is by winning an argument. But I was shocked at how he would take a position. We would, litigate the position. And if he felt like there was a better argument being made, he would say, yeah, I think I agree with XYZ person that made that argument instead. And so that is very core to who we are as a fund. And I think that's served us well.
And so that's unpicking.
That's unpicking the evaluation.
Is there anything else besides just like, so like there's the debating, but then there's the contents of what's being debated. Like, are there any ways of thinking or mindsets that are in there? Because it's like you want good ideas are winning, obviously. So like, what's in that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ideological pieces to this. Many of them are described in Peter's book, 0 to 1. We really don't like consensus categories. Anywhere where you find a bunch of competition, we try to stay away from. I think chapter 6 of Peter's book is literally titled "Competition is for Losers." We don't love competitive market spaces.
Just to click on that, like if there's a space, let's say there's like a AI customer support. There's something where you're like, this is both good and competitive. Like you're not going to not invest just because there's competition. So what would the conversation be like if you're looking at something in code or support or one of these places that are both competitive, but obviously valuable?
Yeah. I mean, we're huge investors in Cognition,
exactly.
For example.
Yeah.
This was literally the tenor of the debate internally when we looked at writing that first check into Cognition. It's like, do we believe that the founder, that like atomic element of the company, is so good that we have to get over our philosophical, nearly dogmatic hesitance to go into these competitive consensus markets? And in that case, the answer was yes. But in many cases, the answer is no. Like you have to have an absolute killer to feel really good about making that bet. But then it's really not a company bet. It's a founder bet.
Yep.
And so you're not betting in the category. You're investing in the person at that stage. We also only invest in founder CEOs. So like once a company has a professional CEO, we're out.
Yep.
We're just not going to do it. We also are much more willing to take tech risk than a lot of other funds. We're happy to write sizable checks into companies that are a ways out from having a product in market. And, there's kind of the famous moniker of Founders Fund from, over a decade ago is we wanted flying cars and instead we got 140 characters. And so we're very
And that's just a pure founder bet too.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out, is this the type of person that's going to be able to manifest this reality?
How much do you talk about like markets in these early stage investments, or is it always about the founder?
Early stage, it's about the founder. Obviously, later stage, you have a lot more data and that stuff comes in. But early stage, like it's something is probably binary. It's like it's either going to work because the founder wills it into existence, or it's not, and it's probably going to be because the team wasn't able to pull it off, not because there's a fundamental TAM constraint or anything like that.
What are the other like big tenets or principles that like often are getting, harkened back to in these debates?
I mean, a lot of it is sort of philosophical about like, do we believe that this needs to exist in the world? And do we believe that us coming in with capital is going to help the founder bring this thing into existence? And, some of our best bets have been predicated on exactly that, whether that's SpaceX or Anduril. Like these are really complicated companies to pull off. And it takes kind of that like hope and vision type of investment out of the early.